Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about astrology and the Waffle House shooting. Now, many of you may have heard on the news recently that there was a tragic shooting that took place at a Waffle House restaurant located in Antioch, Tennessee. Actually, it wasn't that far from where I lived. It might have been maybe 2 miles from where I lived. I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, 4 people, best of my knowledge, were killed in it, and a number of other people were injured. And happened about, it's like 3:23 a.m., I believe it was, according to what I researched, 3:23 a.m. on April 22nd, 2018. And luckily, there was a man by the name of James Shaw Jr. that intervened and perhaps saved many others from being shot. He managed to wrestle the gun away from the gunman known as Travis Reinking, and both of them 29 years old. The man that wrestled the gun away from the perpetrator and the person that did the shooting, Reinking. So I know based on what I have seen, what I looked at, what I've Googled, that Reinking, his birthday is February 1st, 1989. So he is going through his Saturn return. Saturn actually almost made an exact conjunction to his natal Saturn on the day of the shooting, actually. And you know, when Saturn returns take place, it could often be about life-altering, significant events, and it often can indicate something that we have to take strong responsibility for. And the thing about it is, what's interesting, that these two men, James Shaw Jr. likely was going through his Saturn return, being 29 years old, or it's upcoming, or maybe had just recently ended, or what have you. But it's funny that, let's say, if they were both actually going through their Saturn return, well, their lives have been obviously significantly changed and altered, but one for the better and the other, unfortunately, for the worse. Now, going back to, continuing with astrology and this Waffle House shooting, well, the thing about it is that, well, first I want to get at that the person that did the shooting was apprehended. So that is very good news. Now, the thing is, too, and also my heart goes out to the family members and victims as well. Now, looking at the chart, the event chart for the shooting, now Aquarius was rising at 28 degrees. That's one thing that had stood out to me in the chart, partly because there's no planets in air in that chart, and I think that could very well make this ascendant at Aquarius more emphasized, and it's nearly at the full culmination of Aquarius, being at 28 degrees, a degree away from 29, of course. Now, ironically enough, the gunman, Travis Reinking, has an Aquarius sun. And what really stands out, you look at this Aquarius ascendant in the event chart, and really, in being close to 29 degrees, this, can show very close to a full culmination of Aquarius-like energy, something that was going to be very super spontaneous, unpredictable, bizarre, maybe even cause a lot of chaos, something very unusual and unorthodox took place. And the thing was, when the gunman fled, he wound up, Travis Reinking, he either fled with no clothes or little clothes. He apparently had discarded his coat before he took off. So, and anyway, but when you have a chart, event chart that's limited in air, there were no planets in air, as I stated before, but also in just only the ascendant in air, well, that could show some difficulty in articulating things at that time, and really, and really it was more about just action and a strong emotion at that particular time. You also had the moon in Cancer in its dignity, so there was obviously great sensitivity at that time, and I think this might have helped play a role, I mean, in terms of the responsive energy, the reactionary energy of James Shaw Jr. at this time, because remember that the moon in astrology is responsive and it's reactionary. And you had it at its dignity in Cancer, the zodiac sign Cancer. And Cancer energy could be very sympathetic, nurturing, and protective. Now, when James Shaw was interviewed, he had stated that he honestly wasn't thinking about really about helping anybody else at the time. He was actually concerned for himself. Was he being reticent and humble? What was he maybe downplaying this a little bit? It's possible, but the main thing is that ultimately the outcome was the main thing, and he did, by what he did, I'm sure he derailed the shooter from potentially hurting and or killing other people at the time. Now, and the reaction maybe was out of some sympathy to some degree and caring for maybe the other people possibly. So anyway, being really, I think when I look at this as well, some other things I thought was interesting in the event chart. Now, you have Capricorn on the 12th house cusp, and that could perhaps suggest limitations and restrictions in incarceration and incarcerating the person, perhaps. Now, as I stated before, the gunman, the shooter, was incarcerated, but it took over a full day in order to get him. He wasn't apprehended until the 23rd, and the shooting did take place early morning on the April 22nd, 2018. Now, also, too, in the event chart, the 12th house, the ruler of the 12th house is in the 11th house. Now, this may indicate that this may have put some fear and trepidation into others in terms of going to places where groups of people congregate. And I think really this is going to have an impact on that. I think people, because of this, in this area especially, they are going to be a little bit more tentative and hesitant regarding going to places where groups are because of this situation, and going into maybe, like, say, restaurants, comparable places such as restaurants. And also another thing about this too is that what stood out to me is that 11 degrees Gemini is on the 4th house cusp in this chart. Now, the thing about this is, well, this degree, of course, is not far from the fixed star Aldebaran, and because of this, perhaps this indicates strong instigating, warmongering, combative, volatile energy that may have impacted others' emotional security. And as far as 11 degrees Gemini goes in Sabian symbols, now this could reflect maybe somebody at the core that feels condemned, ostracized by others, and has difficulty extricating oneself from the environment where this is actually happening. So, and I wonder if maybe this might have played a little bit of a role in maybe his frustration, Ryan King's frustration at himself, and maybe his environment, maybe feeling condemned by the society nearby, so to speak. Maybe that might have had something to do with this. Now, also too, in the event chart, the moon made a long opposition to Pluto. I mean, looking at it electionally, it is. If it was in an actual natal chart, that would have been definitely an opposition. But anyway, but I'm thinking because of this experience, this moment, perhaps there may be some people that were actually there, that survived, that weren't shot, but were witness to this, that might suffer from some kind of post-traumatic stress disorder, perhaps. And Mars was in a conjunction aspect to Pluto as well. So what I look at this is that Perhaps this could have been some kind of hate crime, could have been that was politically motivated, and also this is a lot of destructive, volatile energy in death through firearms kind of aspects. So anyway, and I think at some point the main suspect had apparently been arrested at one point for being in close proximity to the White House. I thought that was interesting. And really, and when you're talking about this Mars conjunct Pluto at the time, this could be, I mean, you're talking about Capricorn, very intransigent and very cold, calculating energy. Energy of Capricorn, I mean, Capricorn, I think, is arguably the best energy in terms of premeditation and planning, and I do believe this was something that was planned out. Now you had Aquarius on the first house cusp in the event chart. I mean, the event itself was somewhat unpredictable and really, I mean, caused some chaos and was something that was completely unanticipated. But I believe that he did plan this out for a little bit. It wasn't, I don't think this was a spontaneous type action by Travis Reinking. So anyway. Well, next thing I'll talk about too is that at this time the sun was in a near, I mean, electionally may not be seen as a conjunction, but was like maybe 4 degrees from Uranus at this time. This could also shine the light on unpredictable energy, but humanitarian and selfless energy as well. And being in the second house in the chart, something that could very well be strongly valued. Now, the moon in Cancer being near the 6th house cusp can suggest strong, sensitive, emotional energy, but with propensity toward worry. And I think this experience, obviously, for obvious reasons, could have caused many people much anxiety. And Virgo being intercepted in the 7th house could manifest perhaps in difficulty in seeing the details in this open adversary. Now, Leo on the cusp of the 7th, this open adversary may be seen or perceived perhaps as arrogant, flamboyant, very attention-seeking, and also, too, the 2nd and 8th houses in this event chart were also near critical degrees. The 2nd house was at 12 degrees 58 minutes of arc in Aries, in the 8th house, of course, in the opposite position at 12 degrees 58 minutes of arc in Libra. And the ruler of the 8th house was in the 3rd house. This could suggest and indicate perhaps that the death of others were perhaps connected, were involving short journeys. Of course, many of the people that were in that Waffle House, most of them I'm sure were local people, and it involved a short journey, some short transportation in order to get over there. Now, Venus was in Taurus in the 3rd house, and at this time it squared the Aquarius ascendant. Now, this could indicate perhaps that the valuing of some kind in love of peaceful, tranquil communications obviously conflicted with a very strong, disruptive, unpredictable, bizarre energy at this time. So, also too, when I looked a little bit at Travis Reinking's chart. Now, the thing about this is, and this is based on February 1st, 1989 birth date, that seems to be consistent with most of the results that I saw when I Googled his birth date. Now, the thing about this is, in his chart, Jupiter Jupiter in his natal chart is very close to the fixed star Algol. Now, remember, as I've talked about previously in other videos, is that Jupiter can be rather paradoxical. I mean, Jupiter can be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to expand and enlarge tendencies. Now, in this particular case, perhaps this expanded maybe perhaps malevolent, nefarious behavior and even murderous tendencies, and maybe even being a recalcitrant drunk and really expanding that, that propensity for that, perhaps. I think it's possible. Now, at the time, transit Venus was making a conjunction to his Jupiter. Now, perhaps this gave enjoyment in what he was doing in connection with that Jupiter in Taurus algal fixed star algal position. Now, at the same time, when he did this shooting, assuming this was him, now Jupiter was about transit Jupiter was about 4 degrees, I believe, from his natal Pluto in Scorpio. Now, again, you're talking about the amplification energy and enlargement energy connected with Jupiter. This perhaps amplified propensity toward crime and murder, and with the Scorpio-like sinister, vindictive, vengeful energy. Now, this person, the prime suspect, Travis Reinking, has Aquarius Sun and Sagittarius Moon, so this gives a lot of strong, independent, freedom-loving energy. I'm going to do things when I want to do it. No one's going to dictate to me what I'm going to do. Aquarius energy is kind of like, can be maverick energy, rebellious energy, and sometimes even iconoclastic, especially when if it's afflicted in the chart, and it is. And I will in the next video I'm going to talk about his chart actually. Now, again, one other thing I want to get at as far as this event shooting goes. Now, Uranus at the time, was near 29 degrees Aries, not far from the 29th degree, and this could really indicate a full culmination of this unpredictable, disruptive, volatile, and truculent and chaotic energy. And anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my take on the Waffle House shooting and astrology. And stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Travis Reinking. So anyway, 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.